she thought it was just a road trip until the floor opened beneath her. Brook Weber was 18 years old, full of hope and on the brink of adulthood. Raised in Louisiana, she was the kind of young woman people described as kind-hearted, curious, and eager to experience life outside her hometown. Recently graduated from high school, she wasn't quite sure what she wanted to do next, but she was excited to explore her independence. When she met Jeffrey Wolfe, a charming and slightly older man with an adventurous spirit, she felt like her new chapter had finally begun. Jeffrey made her feel special, protected, and seen. When he invited her on a quick road trip to Moss Point, Mississippi, she said yes without hesitation. She had no way of knowing that trip would lead her straight into the jaws of a nightmare. A nightmare named Gary Simmons. Gary Carl Simmons Jr. was a 33-year-old grocery store butcher in Moss Point. On the surface, he seemed like an ordinary man. Hardworking, quiet, and relatively unremarkable. But beneath that bland exterior was a violent, disturbed individual with a long history of criminal behavior. He had previously served time for assault and drug-related offenses. Those who knew him described him as manipulative and sometimes cruel, especially to women. His day job gave him access to knives, tools, and a dark knowledge of how to dismember meat with expert precision. It was knowledge he would use for something far more sinister. Simmons had another associate, a man named Timothy Milano, who shared his criminal lifestyle. Together, they were involved in drug dealing and shady exchanges. Simmons also had a disturbing fantasy life, one that involved domination, control, and cruelty. In his backyard stood a handmade metal box, a rusting and chilling testament to his intentions. It was designed not to hold tools, but a person. It was August 11, 1996. Brook and Jeffrey set out for Moss Point in good spirits. The purpose of their trip was to collect a drug debt Jeffrey was owed by Gary Simmons. Simmons had been stalling repayment for weeks, and Jeffrey, eager to recover what was his, decided to confront him in person. When they arrived, Simmons welcomed them into his home with forced hospitality. He didn't act like someone who owed money, he acted like someone who had been expecting them. Within hours, everything changed. Simmons and Milano lured Jeffrey into a confrontation, then shot him twice in the head with a .22 caliber rifle. The killing was swift, calculated, and cold. Brook, horrified, was immediately taken hostage. Simmons dragged her to the backyard and forced her into the metal box he had welded by hand. It was the size of a coffin, with minimal air holes and no light. Brook, in shock, realized that her life was hanging by a thread. Over the next several hours, Simmons sexually assaulted her. He told her what he had done to Jeffrey. He described in sickening detail how he had dismembered the body in his bathtub, using his butchering tools. Brook was helpless, terrified, and unsure if she would survive the night. Inside the modest house in Moss Point, a horror show unfolded. Jeffrey's body was butchered like an animal. Simmons used his knowledge as a grocery store meat cutter to meticulously dismember the remains. He placed body parts into garbage bags and coolers. He then loaded them onto his small fishing boat and scattered them into the Gulf of Mexico, believing the water would wash away his crime. The box where Brook was held was a grotesque symbol of premeditation. It was made of steel, bolted shut, and hidden behind the house. Brook described the air inside as suffocating. There was barely enough room to move. Every minute inside felt like an eternity. Brook's escape was nothing short of miraculous. At some point, when Simmons was distracted, she managed to grab a butcher knife from the kitchen. She fled barefoot through the neighborhood, covered in dirt, blood, and desperation. Screaming for help, she was spotted by a local resident who immediately called 911. When police arrived, Brook told them everything. The officers were horrified by what they heard, but even more disturbed by what they found. Inside the house, blood was splattered across the bathroom. The metal box was exactly where she said it would be. Tools stained with blood, garbage bags with traces of flesh, and discarded bullets were recovered. Divers were deployed to search the waters of the Gulf. Over time, several of Jeffrey Wolfe's body parts were recovered, along with concrete evidence of Simmons' guilt. Gary Simmons was arrested within days. He showed no remorse. In fact, he reportedly acted smug, as if what he had done was justified. He was charged with capital murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, and abuse of a corpse. The trial drew massive media attention. Brook bravely testified in court, recounting her trauma with heartbreaking clarity. She became the centerpiece of the prosecution's case, a living, breathing testament to Simmons' cruelty. The evidence was overwhelming. Simmons' own writings, recovered from his home, revealed fantasies of torture and control. The jury took little time to convict him. Gary Carl Simmons Jr. was sentenced to death. He spent years on death row before finally being executed by lethal injection on June 20, 2012. His accomplice, Timothy Milano, was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Brook Weber survived, but her life was forever changed. She disappeared from the public eye, understandably seeking privacy after such a harrowing ordeal. Her survival was hailed as extraordinary, a beacon of strength in the face of unimaginable horror. The case sent shockwaves through Mississippi and beyond. It highlighted the dangers of hidden predators and the importance of listening to survivors. Advocacy groups cited Brook's story as a reason for improved protections for victims of violent crimes. The handmade butcher's box became a symbol of evil, of premeditation, cruelty, and the will to survive. The Wolf family never truly recovered from Jeffrey's murder, but they praised Brook for her courage and testimony, which helped bring justice to their son. Brook Weber's story is more than just a crime, it's a haunting lesson about how darkness can wear a mask of normalcy. She walked into what she thought was a simple visit, only to find herself at the center of one of Mississippi's most gruesome murders. Trust can kill. And Brook Weber's story is a warning etched in steel and silence. Brook Weber's escape wasn't just a miracle, it was a message. Evil can hide in plain sight, and survival sometimes takes unimaginable strength. If this story gripped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a case that needs to be heard. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think justice was truly served? Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, not every monster hides in the dark. Some build boxes in their backyard.